The afternoon sun burned gently over the small town, casting golden rays on the busy street where people hurried about their lives. In the middle of the crowd, an elderly woman named Maya shuffled slowly, her worn sandals tapping softly on the pavement. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched an old leather purse, the kind passed down through generations. Inside it, she carried her last savings, hoping today would be the day she could finally open a small account and keep her money safe. Her late husband had always said, "Maya, we must prepare for tomorrow." Today, even though he was gone, she wanted to honor his words. As Maya entered the shiny bank building, she felt out of place. The walls were cold and smooth, glass and steel surrounding her like a fortress. Young professionals in sharp clothes darted past, tapping on phones, whispering about investments, and laughing softly at things she didn't understand. She approached the front desk, where a young man named Derek stood. Derek was busy scrolling on his phone, only half aware of the people around him. Maya cleared her throat softly. "Excuse me, young man, I would like to open an account, please." Derek glanced up, his eyes flicking from her old clothes to her shaking hands. With a sigh, he said, "Do you even have the minimum deposit? We're quite busy today." Maya felt her face flush, but she nodded politely. "Yes, I have some savings." She gently placed her purse on the counter. Derek frowned, glanced around and waved over his coworker. "Lisa, can you handle this?" Lisa busy chatting with another. Staff member rolled her eyes and came over reluctantly. "Ma'am, we're about to close soon." "Are you sure you want to do this today?" Lisa asked with thinly veiled impatience. Maya smiled softly. "I just need a little help." But the atmosphere grew colder, and the whispers between staff grew louder. Without warning, Derek muttered, under his breath, "This isn't a charity." Lisa smirked and said, "Ma'am, maybe come back with someone who can help you." Then, in front of customers and staff, they motioned for security. Maya's eyes widened in shock as the guard approached. The security guard. A large man with tired eyes gently placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "Ma'am, I think it's best if you leave now." Around her, laughter bubbled softly from some of the staff, while others watched silently, too unsure to speak up. Maya's heart pounded. She whispered, "I just wanted to open a little account." But her words were drowned in the noise of the bank, the buzz of machines, and the low hum of conversation. As she stepped back, tears pricked her eyes. The street outside blurred as she walked away, each step heavier than the last. What no one noticed, however, was the man sitting quietly in the corner of the bank lobby. Dressed simply, with a soft face and gentle eyes, he had watched the entire scene. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, was in town visiting a local tech center. He had come in quietly to handle a personal matter, not wanting attention, not using his name or title, but what he saw struck something deep inside him. Sundar felt his chest tighten as Maya was shown the door. His mind flashed to his own mother, to his childhood in India, to the many times kindness from strangers had lifted his family up. He stood up slowly, heart pounding, and walked to the front desk. Derek glanced up and gave a half smile, not recognizing the man before him. "How can I help you, sir?" Sundar's voice was calm but firm. "You just helped someone, didn't you?" I asked softly. Derek blinked, confused. "Yes. We were just closing up." Sundar tilted his head slightly, eyes steady. "Do you know who that woman was?" Derek gave a small, uncomfortable laugh. Just ... an old lady. Sundar smiled, but there was no humor in it. "No, that was someone's mother. Someone's grandmother. Someone who trusted you with her hopes." The staff fell silent as Sundar's words floated across the room. Lisa stopped typing. The security guard who had just returned paused and listened. Sundar continued, his voice low and even. "Do you know what you gave her in return?" "Shame." Derek's face paled. Lisa swallowed hard. One or two customers nearby turned to watch, sensing something big unfolding. Sundar took a breath, looking around. "I will ask you one thing. What kind of place do you want this to be?" The room was heavy, every breath, every sound magnified. No one moved. Meanwhile, outside, Maya sat on a bench, wiping her tears. The sun dipped lower, and a cool breeze stirred the leaves around her feet. She didn't know that inside, something was changing. She didn't know that her quiet dignity had touched the heart of someone powerful. She didn't know that Sundar was about to take the next step, one that would not just change her day, but shake the entire bank. Outside the bank, Maya sat hunched on the cold bench, hands clenched tightly around her old purse. The sun had dropped behind the buildings, casting long shadows across the street. Cars passed, people hurried by, and no one noticed the old woman, shaking softly, wiping at the corners of her eyes. In her chest, a tight ache pressed heavier with every breath. She whispered to herself, "I only wanted to keep it safe." It was not just money in that purse, it was her late husband's watch, an old photo of their wedding day, and her entire world of memories. Inside, Sundar Pichai stood quietly, his fingers resting lightly on the counter. The staff had gone. Silent. Derek, who only moments ago smirked and waved Maya away, now shifted uncomfortably. Lisa closed the banking app on her screen, sneaking nervous glances at Sundar. None of them knew who he was, but there was something about him, a calm authority, that didn't need to raise its voice to command attention. Sundar spoke gently. "You think she's just an old woman? But I see someone who's been through more than most of us can imagine. Someone who has held on to dignity even when the world tried to strip it away." Derek opened his mouth, but Sundar raised a hand, stopping him softly. "I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to remind you." He leaned in slightly, his eyes kind but firm. "What kind of people do you want to be?" Lisa swallowed hard. "We were just following policy. ... double quotes," she muttered. Sundar smiled softly, shaking his head. "Policy without humanity is just cold rules." He straightened, brushing his hands together as if shaking off dust. "Where I come from, we survived on small kindnesses. Little moments where someone chose to help, not because they had to, but because they could." Outside, Maya struggled to rise from the bench. Her knees ached, and she stumbled slightly, clutching the metal armrest. A small boy passing by with his mother stopped and watched her quietly. He tugged at his mother's hand, whispering, "Mama, why is that grandma crying?" But the mother gently pulled him along, too rushed, too distracted, too tired to stop inside the bank. Sundar turned and calmly walked toward the door. Derek watched him go, heart pounding. A strange sensation. Was it guilt? Shame? Both. Burned at the edge of his chest. Lisa rubbed her arms as if the room had gotten colder. Sundar pushed open the glass doors and stepped into the soft evening light. He walked straight to Maya. She looked up, surprised, her eyes red and wet. "Oh, hello," she whispered, unsure who he was. Sundar gave a small bow of his head, crouching slightly to meet her eyes. "May I sit?" he asked softly. Maya blinked, then gave a shy nod. Sundar sat beside her, folding his hands loosely between his knees. For a moment they sat in silence, just the sounds of cars and footsteps passing around them. Then Sundar spoke, his voice low and calm. "I saw what happened." Maya let out a shaky breath. "I didn't want trouble." Sundar smiled gently. "You didn't cause trouble. You showed everyone something important." She gave a sad laugh. "Just an old lady who doesn't know the world anymore." Sundar's eyes softened. "No, a woman with a lifetime of wisdom who deserves respect." Glanced at her purse. "May I see what's inside?" Maya hesitated, then carefully opened it. She pulled out a folded photo, a black and white picture of her wedding day. A young couple, beaming with hope. Next came the small, worn watch, its strap cracked, but its face polished clean. Sundar smiled softly. "He was handsome," he said, nodding to the photo. Maya's face lit up just for a second, a flash of warmth beneath her sadness. "He was my world." At that moment, the bank doors opened again. Derek and Lisa stepped out, faces pale, unsure what to do. Sundar turned slightly, his eyes calm. "Come join us," he called softly. They hesitated, then slowly approached. Maya straightened, nervous, but Sundar touched her arm gently. "It's okay. Derek cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we're sorry. We didn't treat you right." Lisa nodded, eyes shining with sudden tears. "We should have helped. We forgot you're important." Maya looked from Sundar to them, her lip trembling. She whispered, "Why do you care?" Sundar smiled quietly. "Because once someone cared for me when I was small, when I had nothing." He stood up, offering her his hand. "Get to return that gift." The crowd on the street had started to notice. A few people slowed, watching the strange little scene unfolding. A tech billionaire, an old woman, and two embarrassed bankers standing on a sidewalk, connected by something far bigger than money. Then Sundar did something no one expected. He walked back into the bank and, with a few quick words, arranged something quietly with the branch manager. Moments later, the manager rushed outside holding a small velvet pouch and a new account folder. "Ma'am, we'd be honored if you'd be our guest of honor today," he said, his voice shaking slightly. Maya stared, confused. Sundar turned to her. "I would like to help you open your account. No conditions, no rules, just respect." Maya's hands trembled as she took the folder. Her heart pounded. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Then, slowly, the smallest, shyest smile spread across her face, a light that had been buried under years of loss, struggle, and quiet endurance. The crowd around them grew. Someone began clapping softly, then another. Soon, the small street filled with gentle applause. Strangers smiling at a moment they didn't fully understand, but could feel in their hearts. But deep inside Sundar, something stirred a memory he couldn't shake. He remembered a woman from his childhood back home, who had once been turned away from a school gate because she couldn't pay the fee. Sundar had watched from a corner, too young to understand, but old enough to feel the pain. He had promised himself quietly that one day, if he ever had the chance, he would stand up. Not just for himself, but for all the unseen, unheard, forgotten people. Maya didn't know any of this as she wiped her eyes and whispered, "Thank you." But Sundar knew. And as the sun dipped fully below the horizon, casting everything in soft twilight, he also knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Because sometimes, a small act of kindness doesn't end with a smile. Sometimes, it sparks something bigger, a change that ripples outwards, touching lives in ways no one can predict, and far away. Behind a hidden window, someone had been watching the entire scene unfold. Someone with a camera. Someone with a plan. The next morning, sunlight spilled gently across the small town, warming the streets, rooftops, and windows. Inside a tiny kitchen, Maya sat at her wooden table, cradling a cup of tea. Her hands still trembled slightly, but today it wasn't from sadness, it was from disbelief. She glanced at the bank account folder lying on the table, its fresh pages smelling of ink and paper. The old wedding photo sat beside it, as if watching over this new chapter of her life. She shook her head softly. "What just happened?" she whispered to herself. Her phone, an old flip model with scratches on the screen, buzzed suddenly. She opened it, heart skipping. "Neighbor," a young woman named Priya, had sent a message. "Maya, you're on the news." Confused, Maya slowly turned on the small TV in the corner of her kitchen. Her eyes widened as she saw herself on the screen, sitting on the bench, holding her purse, surrounded by Sundar, Pichai, bank staff, and a gathering crowd. As the news anchor was saying, in an unexpected moment of kindness, Sundar Pichai personally intervened when an elderly woman was mistreated at a local bank yesterday. Witnesses say the tech leader's calm but powerful actions transformed not just the bank, but the hearts of everyone watching. Maya's hand flew to her mouth, her cheeks flushed, tears pooling again, but this time they were warm with surprise, not hurt. Across town, in a sleek hotel room, Sundar sat at a small desk, sipping coffee and reading his emails. His assistant, Anjali, knocked softly and entered. "You're all over the news, Sundar," she said, smiling slightly. "People are calling you a hero." Sundar sighed, setting the coffee down. "I'm not a hero, Anjali. I just did what anyone should do." Anjali tilted her head. "Well, not everyone does." Sundar's eyes grew distant. Maybe that's the problem. He leaned back, closing his eyes. The memory from last night clung to him. Maya's trembling hands, her quiet dignity, the small crowd clapping. But another memory kept tugging. At him, his own mother, decades ago. Walking miles to a government office to claim a tiny pension, waiting in line under the scorching sun, ignored by the staff, overlooked by the system. He had been a boy then, watching from the side, helpless. Not this time, he murmured softly. But outside, in the world he didn't yet see, something had started to stir. A short video clip of the bank scene was going viral online. People were sharing it across platforms, adding captions like, "Real leadership, kindness matters, and we need more moments like this." Strangers from different countries left comments. This made me cry. I saw my own grandmother in her, and thank you, Sundar. At the same time, inside the bank, Derek sat stiffly at his desk, staring at his computer screen. His inbox was flooded with messages, not from customers, but from people who had seen the video. Some were angry, others were disappointed. A few, surprisingly, were kind, saying, "You have a chance to change." Derek ran a hand through his hair, his heart heavy. Lisa, meanwhile, sat in the break room, holding a coffee cup tightly, her eyes red. "What have we done?" she whispered. She hadn't slept all night, replaying the moment they had laughed, the way they had dismissed Maya without a second thought. The bank manager, Mr. Collins, called them both into his office. "We need to talk," he said simply, his voice unusually quiet. "This isn't just about bad press. It's about who we are. We either change today, or we lose the trust of everyone." Derek and Lisa nodded, shame washing over them like cold rain. Meanwhile, Maya was receiving knocks on her door. Neighbors brought flowers, cakes, and gentle hugs. Priya came over with groceries, refusing to take no for an answer. Maya smiled shyly, unused to so much attention. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she kept saying. Priya grinned. "Maybe. But sometimes life chooses you, Maya." But the real surprise came when Sundar himself showed up at her door that afternoon. Dressed simply in jeans and a soft shirt, holding a small bag of sweets from the local shop, he gave her a warm smile. "May I come in?" he asked. Maya's eyes filled with happy tears as she waved him inside. They sat together at her kitchen table, sharing tea and sweets. Sundar listened as Maya told him about her late husband, their small life together, their dreams, their losses. He shared stories of his own childhood, the cramped home, the struggles, the quiet moments that shaped him. They laughed softly, their conversation weaving a quiet thread of connection across generations, backgrounds, and worlds. Outside the house, a small crowd began to gather, neighbors, curious passersby, even a few reporters, but Sundar waved. "The camera's away. This isn't for show," he said firmly. "This is just between us." And so, behind the small curtains, two people shared something rare and beautiful, true human connection. But just as the town began to settle, something else was brewing far away. In a sleek, glass-walled office in a major city, a man named Victor watched the viral video on his laptop, his fingers tapping impatiently on the desk. Victor was the CEO of the parent bank company. While the world saw a heartwarming story, he saw something else, a threat to his image. A crack in his empire's carefully polished surface. He picked up his phone and called his team. "Get me details on this Sundar incident," he snapped, "and find out everything about that old woman. I want to control the narrative." Back in Maya's little house, Sundar felt his phone buzz softly. He glanced at the screen, seeing the name of Anjali, his assistant. "You're trending everywhere," the message read. "Do you want to make a statement?" Dar sighed, setting the phone face down. "Not now," he murmured. He looked at Maya, who was humming softly as she poured more tea. Outside, as the sun dipped again and twilight painted the sky in soft pinks and golds, no one could have predicted how far this little moment would reach or what forces it would awaken. Because sometimes, when kindness goes viral, it does more than inspire. Sometimes it shakes the world. That night, the town lay quiet under a soft blanket of stars, but inside Maya's small home, her heart was wide awake. She sat by the window, fingers resting lightly on the edge of the curtain, watching the street outside. The warmth of Sundar's visit lingered in the room like a gentle afterglow. On the table sat the gift he had left, a small note that simply said, "You are seen." Maya touched the paper, her chest tightening. It had been years since anyone made her feel that way, meanwhile. Sundar walked quietly through the hotel garden, his hands deep in his pockets, head tilted toward the night sky. His mind was restless. Part of him felt peace. He had done the right thing, but another part buzzed with unease. His phone had been vibrating all evening with news alerts. Messages, requests for interviews, and offers from media outlets. He wanted none of it. But as he passed under a tree, his phone buzzed again. Anjali's name flashed on the screen. After a long pause, Sundar picked up. "Anjali," he said softly. "I know you told me to rest," but her voice cut in, tense. "Sundar, you need to know the CEO of the bank's parent company. Victor Lawson is making moves. He's not happy. They're digging into Maya's past, trying to spin the story." Sundar's heart clenched. "No," he murmured. "No, they can't drag her into this." Anjali exhaled sharply. "They're framing it like you attacked their brand. They're painting her as ... unstable, confused. They want to bury this under doubt." Sundar closed his eyes, jaw tight. The memory of Maya's trembling smile, the quiet dignity she carried, burned in his mind. "Thank you, Anjali," he said softly. "We won't let that happen." Across the city, Victor Lawson paced his office, lit only by the cold glow of his computer screens. "Get me everything," he barked into the phone. "Out the media. Narrative by morning. Make sure this looks like a misunderstanding." People love to cry over an old woman one day and forget the next. His assistant hesitated. "Sir, are you sure?" "The public seems to love this Sundar guy." Victor's fist slammed the desk. "Then we remind them that we own the banks, not him." Back in Maya's neighborhood, word spread fast. Priya, her young neighbor, showed up again the next morning, holding her phone tightly. "Maya, they're saying things about you on the news," she whispered. Maya, confused, turned on the television. A slick reporter was speaking. "While social media celebrates a billionaire's kindness, some inside. Sources suggest the elderly woman involved has a history of confusion and erratic behavior." They showed a blurry photo of Maya from years ago, outside a hospital after her husband died. Neighbors describe her as lonely, often wandering the streets. Maya's breath hitched. She felt her knees weaken. What is this?" Outside, more cameras had gathered. People with microphones knocked on her door, shouting questions. "Maya, are you okay? Maya, do you know Sundar personally? Maya, were you really mistreated?" Inside the hotel, Sundar watched the news unfold, his chest burning with anger. He knew exactly what was happening. This was not just a smear on Maya. It was a message to him. Stay out of it. Leave things alone. But Sundar had never been good at looking away. He called Anjali, set up a press conference. He said calmly, "I'm not letting them touch her." That afternoon, under a sky thick with clouds, Sundar stood on a small stage in the town square. Cameras pointed at him. Reporters leaned forward. Microphones lined the table. He took a breath and began. "This is not about me," he said softly. "This is about who we are as a community, as a society. When we push away the vulnerable, when we dismiss the elderly, when we forget our humanity, we all lose." He looked directly into the cameras, his eyes steady. "Maya is not confused. Maya is not unstable. Maya is every one of our mothers. Our grandmothers, the people who built the world we stand on today." His words rippled through the crowd, through the cameras, into living rooms, offices, and phones across the country. Meanwhile, Derek and Lisa watched from inside the bank. Derek ran a hand through his hair, swallowing hard. He's talking about us," he whispered. Lisa nodded slowly, tears in her eyes, and he's right. Without another word, they both stood and left the building, hearts pounding in. Victor Lawson's skyscraper office, the press conference played silently on a screen. Victor's jaw tightened as he watched Sundar's calm, piercing gaze. "He's good," Victor muttered. "Too good." He turned to his team. Pull back. We'll handle this another way. But a small crack of doubt flickered in his eyes. A flicker he didn't want anyone to see. Back at Maya's house, Priya burst through the door, breathless. Maya, did you see? He spoke for you. Maya sat quietly at the table, the television glowing softly across the room. She watched Sundar, her hands folded in her lap, eyes shining. Later that evening, there was a knock at the door. When Maya opened it, she gasped softly. Standing there were Derek and Lisa. No cameras, no crowd, just them.
Oh.
Maya, we just wanted to say, we're sorry. Truly sorry, Lisa added softly. We forgot what matters. Maya's eyes filled, but she gave them a gentle smile. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for remembering now. But as the town took a breath, as the news shifted its gaze, as people started to believe the story was over, far away, Victor sat alone in his office, a cold smile curling at the edge of his lips. This isn't over, he murmured. Not yet. The air in the small town felt heavier the next morning. Clouds hung low, soft and gray, pressing against the rooftops. Inside Maya's home, she moved carefully through the rooms, her fingers brushing old photos, books, and memories. Though the news had calmed, though Sundar's words had softened the world's anger, she couldn't shake a quiet unease in her chest. At the window, she watched the street, seeing neighbors walk by, some smiling, some offering little waves. But she felt a strange pressure inside, a feeling she couldn't name. Meanwhile, across town, Sundar sat in his hotel room, the curtains drawn, his laptop open but untouched. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands pressed together. Anjali sat across from him, her face worried. You did everything right, she said softly. Sundar let out a slow breath. That's not over. He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen, news articles had shifted tone. CEO Sundar Pichai speaks out. Is it sincere or a media move? One headline read. Another said, bank scandal. How much is real? How much is staged? Sundar rubbed his temples. They're trying to twist it. Make it seem like I planned this, like Maya was a tool for attention. Anjali shook her head, anger flashing in her eyes. They're scared, Sundar. They see you as a threat. Sundar's eyes darkened. No, they're scared of change. No, far away, Victor Lawson watched the same headlines from his glass tower. He leaned back in his leather chair, a cold smile pulling at the corners of his mouth. Let him fight the news cycle, Victor murmured. I have something stronger. He tapped his phone. Out, bring in the board. By afternoon, Sundar's team had gathered in the hotel meeting room. Anjali set down her phone with a worried look. Victor's calling for a meeting with the Global Bank Board. They want to push you into silence, say you crossed a line. Interfering in business? Sundar nodded slowly. Good, he murmured. Then we take it further. Anjali blinked. What do you mean? We go public, Sundar said softly, eyes fierce now. But not just me. Maya Anjali's heart jumped. Sundar, are you sure? That's a lot to ask of her. Sundar gave a small, sad smile. She's stronger than all of us. Meanwhile, Maya sat quietly on her sofa. The television turned low when a soft knock came at her door. It was Sundar, entered gently, sitting beside her, folding his hands. Maya, I need to ask you something difficult, he said softly. Maya tilted her head, a little smile tugging at her lips. You always look so serious, she teased lightly. Sundar let out a soft laugh, the tension in his shoulders easing. I need you to speak with me, not for the cameras. It's not for the world, just for the truth. Maya's eyes softened. You think they'll listen to someone like me? Sundar nodded firmly. They already are. The next morning, under a pale sky, Maya and Sundar stood side by side on the small stage in the town square. No grand setup, no flashing lights, just them and a few quiet reporters. Sundar spoke first. This is Maya, he said simply. Is not a symbol. She is not a news story. She is a person. He stepped back, and Maya took a tiny breath, fingers trembling as she gripped the microphone. I don't know much about companies, or money, or power, Maya began softly, her voice a little shaky. But I know about people. I know what it feels like to be seen, and what it feels like to be invisible. She paused, eyes glistening. When you pushed me away, you didn't just push away an old woman. You pushed away every child I raised. Every neighbor I helped, every kindness I ever gave. The small crowd hushed, hearts pulling tight. Sundar watched her with quiet pride. Maya's voice grew a little stronger. But one person stood up, not because he had to, but because he could. She smiled softly at Sundar. And maybe that's how the world changes. Not all at once. Not with noise, but one kindness at a time. The reporter stayed still, cameras lowered, as if afraid to break the moment. But as the town leaned in closer, Victor Lawson watched the live feed from his office, his jaw tight. "She's good," he muttered. His assistant shifted nervously. "Sir, what do you want to do?" Victor leaned forward slowly. "We go personal." That night, Sundar received a message. It was short. No sender name, just 4 words. "You should walk away." Attached was a photo, a blurry picture of his childhood home in India. Sundar's heart clenched, closed his eyes, his breath slow and heavy. In the dark room, Anjali watched him, her own face pale. "They're threatening you now," she whispered. Sundar opened his eyes, steady and calm. "Then we're close to something real." At Maya's house, Priya sat with her, holding her hand. "Are you okay?" Priya asked gently. Maya gave a tiny smile. "I've been okay for a long time. People just didn't notice." Outside, the town square lay quiet, but change was humming under the surface. Soft, steady, unstoppable, and far away. In Victor Lawson's tower, the walls seemed just a little thinner, the glass just a little more fragile. As the man inside wondered for the first time if maybe, just maybe, the old world he controlled was starting to crack. The sun rose slow and pale over the small town, casting a soft golden light on quiet streets. Inside Maya's house, the morning was still. She sat at her kitchen table, fingers wrapped around a cup of tea, eyes gazing out the window. Watching the reporters anymore, or the curious neighbors, or even the photographers? She was watching the sky, the colors, the light. The way a new day always found its way back. The news had exploded overnight. Social media was flooded with clips of Maya's words, simple and raw, touching hearts across the world. Strangers sent messages of love, sharing their own stories of kindness and hurt. Old friends from Maya's past had even called, their voices shaky, saying, "I saw you. I'm proud of you." But something darker was moving beneath the surface, inside. A sleek, glass-walled office far away, Victor Lawson stood before a table of executives. His fingers tapped the edge of his chair as screens behind him flickered with news headlines. "We are losing control of this story," he said coldly. "We need to remind the world who runs the system." One executive cleared his throat. "That's her." "People are rallying behind Sundar. ... And Maya, the public isn't listening to us." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Then we remind Sundar who we are." He turned sharply, arranged the call. Back at the hotel, Sundar sat on the balcony, his face calm but his heart heavy. Anjali appeared at the doorway, her phone in hand. "Victor Lawson wants to speak to you. Says it's urgent." Sundar's eyes flickered with a quiet strength. "Put him through." A cold voice crackled over the line. "Sundar," Victor drawled, smooth as ice. "You've made quite the show. It's impressive, really. But let's be clear. You're poking a machine much bigger than an old woman in a town square." Sundar leaned forward slightly. "Then maybe it's time the machine felt it." His laugh was low and sharp. "You can't win this. We'll win the banks. We own the headlines. You walk away, or we break you." And we break her. For a moment, silence hung between them like a held breath. Then Sundar spoke, soft and even. "You've already lost." And he hung up. That afternoon, Sundar and Maya stood together at the edge of the town square. No cameras, no reporters. Just the people. Neighbors, workers, families, students, they gathered quietly, shoulder to shoulder, their presence, a silent wave of support. Maya looked up at Sundar, a small smile trembling on her lips. "Why did you come here, really?" she asked softly. Sundar gave a quiet laugh. "To open a bank account," he teased, but then his eyes softened. "Maybe, to remember why I started all this." The crowd fell into a hush as Derek and Lisa approached, walking slowly through the people. Behind them, the bank manager, Mr. Collins, followed, his face pale but determined. They stopped in front of Maya. Derek cleared his throat. "We want to start over," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Lisa nodded. "Truly help." Maya reached out, touching their hands softly. "Then help the next person, and the next, and the next." Just as the moment settled, a sudden sound broke the calm. A car door slamming, sharp footsteps crossing the square. All heads turned. Victor Lawson stood there, sharp suit, cold eyes, flanked by two assistants. His gaze swept the crowd, landing on Sundar. "Enough," Victor snapped. "You've had your little moment." But Sundar didn't flinch, stepped forward, calm and quiet. "We've had more than a moment," he said softly. "We've had a reminder," Victor sneered. "This doesn't change anything." Maya stepped forward, small but steady. "It changes me," she said quietly. "And maybe that's enough." For a moment Victor faltered, a flicker in his eyes, a crack in the mask. Then, without another word, he turned sharply and left, his steps echoing across the stone. The crowd let out a slow, quiet breath. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows. Sundar turned to Maya, his eyes gentle. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever met," he murmured. Maya gave a soft laugh. "I'm just old, dear," she whispered. Sundar smiled. "No, you're everything I hope to be." That night, the news didn't focus on Victor. It didn't focus on corporate battles or headlines. It showed images of neighbors helping each other, a town finding its heart. A simple bench outside the bank where Maya now sat, no longer invisible, no longer alone. Maya sat under the stars, her purse beside her, her heart light. She thought of her husband, of the years they had weathered, of the quiet dreams they had carried. And as she looked at the sky, she whispered softly, "We're okay now." Far away, Sundar boarded his plane, glancing once more at the town below. His phone buzzed, messages, calls, interviews, but he let them wait. He closed his eyes, breathing in the quiet, because sometimes the biggest victories aren't won in boardrooms or headlines. They're won in small moments, quiet acts, the decision to stand up, even when you don't have to. And in that choice, a single person can light a path for many.